my friends, and thanks for joining me again. And so I get a lot of questions about people wanting to start seeds. There are a lot of different times when people would want to start seeds. Maybe they just want to do them for themselves, or even a plant sale. I have a video, I'll put a link in the description box, but it was a plant sale that I did a couple of years ago. I've actually been doing the plant sale every year for the last several years. Last year, the year before is when I did the video. I did it the year before that. And so I have a fair amount of experience starting seeds and selling them. Before I sold them, I just did them for myself, and so this has been something that's sort of been building, just starting them for myself, getting really good at it, and then, moving into the realm of actually selling them. And so I get, again, a lot of questions about how to go about that. So I wanted to do a quick video series about how to start seeds in a pretty comprehensive way, pretty much following me with every single step I do along the way, how I make the decisions I make, why I make them, the different materials I use, all these types of things. And so this is going to be video number 1 for my fairly comprehensive guide on how to start seeds indoors. However, I will say that I don't start a lot of flowers, and so this is going to be mainly geared toward like garden plants, real common ones, even a few less common ones, and then like herbs and things like that. So edible garden plants, maybe more than the flowers. However, those would probably just be the same. You would just have to follow the back of the seed packet to find out exactly when you start them, but everything else is all going to be the same. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is look up when your average last frost date is in your area. So here where I live, that's usually around Mother's Day, usually about mid-May or so. And so for us this year, I'm planning for that to be about the 15th of May, 2016. So once you find out when your average frost date is, just do a quick Google search or whatever, you're going to write that on your calendar. And then you're going to want to use the weeks ahead of that to calculate out, how far out from that date things are. Because everything is going to hinge as far as when you're going to be doing everything. Following the schedule, is important, when it comes to following the dates. So you put your planting day approximate, and then 1 week before, 2 weeks before, follow your calendar, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that brings us to April, and now here we are in March, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, the first weekend in March, so March 6th Sunday or so, is about 10 weeks out, and so I'll know if I wanted to start my plants 10 weeks out, that's when I need to start them. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So you find your average last frost date, and now you're going to write out the weeks leading up to it until, about 12 or 16 weeks out, depending on when it is you're going to start them. So the next thing you're going to want to do is fill in the dates and the amounts of how much you're going to want to do. So I had a video I put out a little while ago. I'll just go ahead and read off of that. But basically, it's pretty short and simple how to make a seed starting calendar. And again, I'll just copy and paste all the stuff from this old video into this video, and then you won't have to do, a search for it or anything like that. So weeks 12 to 16, you're going to want to start your cool weather crops and your slow growers. So these are going to be ones that are going to be mainly cool weather crops that you're going to grow for yourself, or stuff that's, just slow growing in general. So what I have here would be onion seeds, celery, leeks, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and pansies. Those pretty much need started inside in order for them to grow correctly for the rest of the year. The second group is going to be the ones that are optional. You can either plant these out maybe 6 weeks out before, the actual last frost date, because they're actually really cool weather crops. They can handle, a little bit of snow and some frost and things like that. Or you can start them now, say 12 or 16 weeks ahead, and then they have a chance to grow, and then when it comes down to, 4 or 6 weeks out, you can actually plant them as transplants out there. So they're optional for earliest harvests, but again, this is mainly geared toward if you're starting them for your own garden. These aren't necessarily ones that you're going to want to start this early for a plant sale, because they'll end up getting too big. That's why it's really important to follow the seed schedule. Some plants need started early, some plants don't, and then if you plant them too early, then they get too big. If you plant them too late, then they're not big enough, and then if you try to sell them, people won't like them because they're going to think, they won't produce as quickly and whatnot. And so sticking to the schedule is actually really important for success. So the second group is going to be, again, optional for earliest harvest and mainly geared toward if you're starting them for yourselves. Lettuce, spinach, pak choi, mustard greens, endive, Swiss chard, collard greens, kale, arugula, and parsley. So you can start those again if you want to now, or you can wait and hold off on those a little bit. Now the next group is going to be more geared toward whether you're planting them for yourself or for a plant sale. They're going to get started at the same time either way. So these are going to be the slow growing warm weather crops, and so those are going to include tomatoes, eggplants, petunia, like sage, lavender, oregano, marigolds. You can plant this early, but you don't have to. They'll just be in bloom if you do, which is good because lots of pretty color from the street will help people stop at your plant sale, so definitely helpful. Basil, and then cilantro. So I would go ahead and write those dates again on the calendar. So I'm doing this a little bit early because I wanted to make sure this is, going to get to you in time so that if you have a similar frost date in your area, you can make sure to be starting them at the same time. So I'm doing mine just a little bit ahead, and then by the time the video comes live, you guys could follow along and basically essentially do the same thing if that's something you're looking for. So anyway, 10 weeks out, it says 8 to 10, so you can do it as early as 10 weeks. You can start doing those warm weather crops that are somewhat slow growing. So just fill all this out on your calendar, according to the seed starting schedule, and then when the dates come up, you can follow along, and then you'll really have good success, trust me. Okay, and then for weeks 2 to 3, you're going to start the fast weather crops. Usually about 4 weeks out, I'll do my transplanting, but again, that's going to be another video. You'll be following along as I'm doing it. So about 4 weeks, we're going to transplant, and then at 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to do the fast-growing warm weather crops. So this is going to be stuff like cantaloupe, watermelon, pumpkin, cucumbers, summer squash, zucchini, yellow squash, winter squashes like acorns, spaghetti, butternut, these types of things. And then in my home garden, I'll just go ahead and direct sow beets, turnips, carrots, radishes, peas, things like that. And then, on the last day of the average frost, you're going to want to just directly sow things like beans, bush and pole beans, sunflowers, corn, dill, and then all of these plants that you've been growing ahead of time, all these summer squashes, that have recently started to grow, and then the ones, the peppers and the eggplants and everything else. You could basically go out and plant all of that out into your garden on this date. So it's all, again, leading up to that frost, that last day of the actual frost average, depending on what the weather's going to be like in that area. So I know that sounds like a lot of legwork. It's really not as hard as it sounds. Just go through your calendar, fill in everything, fill in all of your dates, and then once you have all your dates figured out and you know when you're going to do them, you need to get some supplies for what you're going to actually be doing. So honestly, I think you have like 3 main options here on where you're going to get your supplies. You can get them from a local big box store, of course, a Walmart or something like that. You can go to a local greenhouse, supply thing, or you could get it online. I use mainly 2 of the 3. I'll use, my big box store. This is the one that I mainly used when I was just doing them for myself. And then when I was going to actually do them for a plant sale and I was starting larger amounts of things, I would go ahead and get them online in bulk. So again, you can plan according to what it is, you're going to mainly be using. So if you were going to buy them from a big box store, usually they come in these little kits. So you end up with what is called a 10-20 tray, which is this black tray right here. This is used, so hopefully it doesn't look too bad on camera because it's kind of dirty. So you get a 10-20 tray, some inserts, which these can look different depending on what type you're going to get them, and then a humidity dome. Personally, I don't really like these very much. They have their ups and downs. I will use these if the humidity is really low. But as soon as the plants start to sprout, you need to pull them off because otherwise these can cause some problems. I'll address, some common seed starting problems later. So when you get them at the big box store, again, you get your 10-20 tray and then your inserts. Well, if you're going to be buying them online, which the place I get mine is from the Greenhouse Mega Store. No, I'm not being endorsed by them or anything like that. I just did some research and I found that they were the cheapest, and so that's who I went with. So I buy these in bulk. Usually they come in like packs of 10 or something like that. And then you get what are called inserts. These are basically plastic things that you take, you separate out, and then you put them into your 10-20 tray. This one is missing one, but that's alright, no big deal. And then you just fill these with soil, and then they're really, really easy to work with. Well, I use 3 versions of these. I use these big square ones for when I'm going to be transplanting my tomatoes and my peppers into a bigger pot. I start them in these small ones now, and then and when they get bigger, I'll transplant them into the other ones. And then the last one that I use are these ones. These are what I use for like herbs and things like that. So you can get by with as little as just these small, you know, these 6-pack style ones, and then these larger ones. But I really do think that, you know, because I do the plant sale, that's the main reason why I started using the other ones. Those were really helpful. So anyway, just so you know, in case you wanted to use the same ones, you can. Excuse me, Greenhouse Megastore. These ones are item number 1206, so they're 6 packs, 6 cells, and they come in 12 packs. And then these ones, the one I use for herbs, these come in 36 cells, so that is item number 3601. And then these large square ones, the ones I'm going to be transplanting into later, these are called 1801, and they're basically 18 squares. So there you go. Hopefully that's helpful. Or you could just, you know, again, get it from a big box store or a greenhouse. Or you could just shop around on Greenhouse Megastore and look at their trays or their inserts and then see what would work best for you, because they have all sorts of different sizes, varieties. They have these in 4 packs. They have them in 6. They have, you know, larger ones, smaller ones. They have 3s and 4s and just all these different configurations. And so whatever it is you're looking for, I'm sure they're going to have it, because they really do have a lot. Okay, so now we know when to do what we're going to do with the calendar. Now we have the supplies that we're going to actually need. Now we need to actually do the seed starting. So what I do, this one is basically the same thing as this one, except for it is filled with dirt. This is a trick I actually learned back at the community college when I used to do seed starting there. I take a chopstick and then I put a bunch of lines on it based on the depth. So, you know, you can see the little lines there. There's a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 1 1/2, and then 2 inches. And so when you look up the actual seed packet for the seeds that you're going to be using, and it says plant it to 1/4 inch, what I do is I just take my little seed stick and I stick it in the hole up to the 1/4 inch, and then I make a little circle so that when I go to actually take my seeds and drop them in the hole, it's exactly the right depth it needs to be. Does that make sense? So it makes it a lot easier when using the chopstick than, you know, trying to figure out exactly the right depth and, you know, using my finger or anything else like that. So yeah, the chopstick definitely can help a lot. So the actual soil itself, some people prefer to make their own. Personally, I think my life is hard enough already and I don't need to make more of a mess than I need to and have more things to track down. So I just use regular ordinary potting soil that I buy from, again, any big box store. And then I fill my, you know, inserts and trays with that. Use my stick. Let's see what else. Okay, so once you actually get your seeds in here, you're going to want to, like, label them. There are 2 main ways that people will label them: plastic and then wood. They both have their ups and downs. Plastic is usually really expensive, but they don't rot. Wood is really inexpensive, very, very cheap, but they rot. So honestly, I still go with the sticks, even though the bottoms of them will eventually rot. You do want to use a Sharpie pin. I used a regular pin for the first year or 2, and I found out that, you know, the sun washes out the regular ink, and so I've definitely found out that you're going to want to use a Sharpie pin when writing this so that they don't end up washing out on you, and then you don't have more work to do later. So yeah, I go ahead and make my holes, I drop in all my seeds, I label them. Now they need 2 things. They need water and they need warmth. They don't actually need sun, although the sun can produce warmth for them, which can be really helpful in helping them to germinate. So I stick them in a nice warm sunny place, usually my greenhouse, until they germinate, and then I just keep them watered. And so from this step, you know, that's pretty much all you're going to want to do until the next video when I show you what we're going to be doing next, of course. There are 3 main things that go wrong with seedlings. The first one is going to be a fungus called damping off. If you've ever started seeds and they've started to grow, and then at the very base of the seedling, it kind of rots or, looks like it dies or withers, and then the whole seedling falls over and dies, that's the fungus called damping off. So that's usually too much water. The second one is going to be fungus gnats. These look like tiny little, almost like fruit flies, but they're not. They actually live in the soil, and they actually live on the roots of the soil of the plants that you're growing. So if you have that, usually that ends up being too much water as well. And then root rot. The last common problem is just too much water. It causes the roots to rot. So as you can see, the three main problems that are caused, for your plants going wrong are all caused by too much water. So a lot of people will like to top water, just put some water on the top and keep their seedlings watered this way. Some people prefer to do bottom watering, where they actually fill the tray underneath with water. Honestly, all three of these main problems are caused by bottom watering. So I know there are a lot of people who are, really, really stuck on, bottom watering, and that's what they prefer, and that's fine. If that works for you where you live, that's fine. Unfortunately, that doesn't work for me because I end up with all three of those problems. I go ahead and I top water. So I'll just check them every day, maybe every other day, water them every day, or as it needs, without giving them too much water, and keeping them nice and evenly moist until they sprout. Sometimes if it's not warm enough in the area where you are, you might need to use like a seed starting mat or like a heat pad or something like that underneath here, and that'll help them to sprout as well. So there you go. We have everything we need for video number 1. You have your schedule, you're going to follow your calendar, you have all the supplies that you need, the different ways that you can get them, your soil, actually starting the seeds, and now actually maintaining them until they sprout. So hopefully this was helpful to you in the video number 1 of starting seeds. I'm going to go ahead and start a bunch of seeds again for a plant sale this year. So I plant a ton for myself. I give a bunch away to my friends and my brother and some people that I know that like to garden here. And then I sell a lot in my plant sale. So I'm going to sell probably 150 or 200, tomato plants, and I'm going to have herbs and all these different things. And again, I'm going to document it as I'm going. So I'm just putting this one out nice and early in case you wanted to get some of these supplies and follow along. So you can start them for yourself, or you could even plant them, to start to sell as well. So hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm Frugal Green Girl, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.